Hello everyone, I'm tuning in from EPR 781. I'm going to unpack the critical reflection inquiry that we're required to do for assignment task 2. We've had a number of questions about what is actually required, so I'm going to go through and show you a planning process and the ways that you can engage with this reflective inquiry. So I'd first of all like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land of which we meet today virtually and work towards achieving more socially just narratives. So first of all, we're going to start our drafting process for assignment 2. The drafting process, criteria 1, asks you what are the key points and why are these important. Essentially, that's what you need to do. So you need to begin, before you can even start thinking about writing, you need to begin by considering your background experiences, your experiences in education, both formally and informally. What are the things you learned well and what did you not learn well? What were the kind of expectations people had for you? And did they connect with what you wanted for yourself? What did you experience in that process? How was difference understood in your experience? How did this impact on you and how did this impact on others? So the important things here are you are really reflecting on what happened in your background and how that aligned with the policy and education processes at that current time. You really need to say in your introduction what it is you are doing, why you are doing it, and why what you are doing matters, and importantly, you need to outline whose voices you are relying on in this process. So who are the key theorists that you draw on, which reflective frameworks are you using to frame your inquiry, and which authors are you going to pursue. So that means you need to kind of do a little bit of work. First of all, thinking about your background, but then some research to identify theorists that align with this. So what kinds of education policies are you doing research on, the kinds of education policies that your background and your reflections are connecting to? How well did those policies do their job? And who do these policies belong to? And policies are only ever enacted by teachers. So how did their enactment, what kind of impact did that have on you, and how did that fit with your understandings of who you were at the time? You know, when we think about, do we have a language to define our experiences? Did that language define or limit our experience and the ways our identity unfolded? What were the formal things that you learned in outside of your education? And perhaps even as part of educational groups in university. So really be thinking about that process in relation to criteria 1. You need to start that. And then when we look at criteria 1, which says, okay, we're going to introduce what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and the key aspects of this inquiry. So I've highlighted some words from the rubric. You need to provide an overview that it's informative and comprehensive of what you're doing. And you need to provide the rationale and intention for this inquiry. Why are you doing this? And then how you've drawn out those themes. So you need to be thinking about all of your experiences, looking at what key themes are emerging. You may have 5 or 6 themes, but you're not going to be able to include all of them. So be thinking about which ones were really significant. So really be thinking about, if you're looking at policies of inclusion, how does that impact on people and how was that enacted? So really thinking about what education policies connect to these experiences. So you need to go and explore some of those policies once you've done that initial reflection. Find the literature, look at deep policies, and then look at the pedagogies that also connect with those experiences. The Churchill text in chapter 8 really unpacks the pedagogies that you can draw from. And then also linking these pedagogies with the code of conduct practice principles that teachers are required to abide by, and also the goals of education as defined by the Partway Declaration. And then also really draw on the reflective inquiry process or the framework that you utilise to support your thinking. We need to draw on Brookfield's 4 lenses of critical reflection as one theoretical starting point, but also have a look at what else. We have the 4R's reflective model is uploaded on the unit site. So draw from that. Really be thinking about what does this mean, the so what, not just the what, but how is your reflection informed critically by theory, literature, policy frameworks. Once you've done that, then we move to criteria 2. So once you've outlined what it is you're going to do, what are the key themes, and you've already explored the literature, done some research, identified policies, then you move to criteria 2, where you really need to be thinking about what shaped your thinking, what has happened socially around you, and what does policy and literature say in relation to your identified themes. Really be thinking about who you are. And so, if we look at different perspectives, we might see that one perspective says that we need to work towards greater inclusion in schools of people from disadvantaged backgrounds. But another perspective might suggest that people who aren't working haven't taken enough initiative. So be thinking about what it is that have shaped the ways you understand things, and be thinking about how well or what you were or weren't supported, and then what this has got to do with pedagogy, your pedagogy as an emerging teacher, and what it is you're going to try and bring forward in your own teaching to support your learners and to ensure they're included. So start that whole research project. What documents fit with these themes? What policies? You can locate the deep policies in their policy repository, or even just Google online and you'll find the link. And really, the policies are here to guide teachers through their teaching in relation to social issues. So be thinking about what has shaped your thinking and be really critically reflecting on them to bring some deeper insights. At the end of the day, if you've never had to consider the policies and the social issues because you've gone through life without needing to address this, you will need to consider what this now means for people who are suffering. Because under these policies, like as a teacher, we need to be able to consider the perspective of our students. So, why is this now important? Then this really brings us to criteria 3. We're not just looking at your themes, but we're really looking at them in relation to the bigger picture issues. But what are these themes that you've drawn out? Why are they important, and what are we going to do about it? So we're really looking here. If we look here at what are the big issues and how and why are these connected? So you're required to provide an insightful inquiry into the connections to broader social issues related to education. So when we're talking about what are people saying about the aims of education, what are the connections to the relevant political, social, cultural and economic issues, and then really draw that critical consciousness that shapes your inquiry. So be thinking about, how am I going to engage with and dismantle some of the mainstream ideas of identity, and what happens to students who don't fit into those mainstream ideas, and then be thinking about what must we as teachers do to engage with these problems, and what does this mean for us? And how can we ensure that our students achieve their potential, what it is they want for themselves and not what others decide for them? So that might link to ideas about agency and choice and control, and ideas of control and who decides what curriculum is taught and who benefits from that decision. So be thinking about what you've found in relation to your development of your critical consciousness and what you're going to do about it here in this section. And then if we move to criteria 4. So criteria 4 asks us to present an emerging position based on our reflections and our understandings of education. So I've highlighted in yellow, this suggests that we need to be thinking about what have you learned in this process? What are some of the tensions that are emerging, and what are your emerging views as a teacher? So what does this now mean for you? So we're thinking about the implications of our discussion, and we're going to present that and the ways that this whole process has brought in some new understandings. So what have you learned about yourself as a teacher? So this section really relies on what you've built up across criteria 1, 2, 3. So what is it that you've brought to the table? You're going to reflect on that critically, well supported by literature. And what are your new emerging positions and values, and what are the areas of tension that still remain? So what do you now know about yourself as a teacher? And what was missing from your own educational experience when you're looking back now through these theoretical frameworks and this literature and this policy? And then what are you going to do about this in relation to your development as a teacher? And the main part here is that you're trying to show ownership of your reflection. So you can actually use first person language here to really support that ownership. You won't be able to fit in all the themes that emerge, so be selective. Think about what are the emerging values and the areas of tensions. And rather than just saying, this is what I'm going to do, but really examining that in relation to your own position and your own learning. And then presenting that really rich critical inquiry. Thinking about curriculum documents. What kind of ideologies exist? And how does that impact on the students, and how does that impact on the ways that you as a teacher might be able to enact certain policies and processes? And so what kind of limitations are there? You know, we talk about student agency and we talk about teacher agency, but when we have to achieve particular outcomes, what does that mean for us? What kind of tensions are created? When we have to deliver certain curriculum deliverables, what kind of tensions does that create for our students and for us in our own teaching? And so we want you to really bring that consciousness to your teaching and the ways that you can kind of navigate that space for your students. And then section 5, criteria 5, you know, it's still worth 20% of your mark, so really strive hard here to make sure that you present a well-written and well-researched document using critical literature, and really engage with that. So I hope you enjoy the process. I hope this has helped to unpack a little bit of what we might need to be doing across our reflective process. But really I encourage you to get started with drafting those experiences. That needs to be your first step. And then as you go with your reading, constantly reading, drawing on, linking the literature, linking the policies, linking the curriculum frameworks to and the policies to some of your themes and findings that are emerging. And then critically engage with that through that reflective process. Like, so what happened? So what does this mean? So now what does this mean for you? Or use the 4 R's process that's uploaded. But also use Brookfield and be reflecting on the 4 frameworks, the 4 lenses of self, student, colleagues and theory, and really engage with that process. Thanks everyone.